We get started, please. Good morning. Would you please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome, and we do have a quorum, so I will call to order the meeting of the State Board of Education for the State of Florida, April 15, 2008. And the Chair will entertain a motion to pull items 3, 14, and 15 from the consent agenda and add them to the action agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved up second that the item so stated will be added to the action agenda. Call the question. Those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. So be it. Thank you. Is the representative from Inlet?
Thank you. My name is Candace Harper. I'm here from the University of Florida in Gainesville. My office address is Norman Hall, the University College of Education. I'm in the teacher education program at the University of Florida. I'm here with a colleague, and we are here to express some concern and to provide some information from our perspective and our experience with the exam. I wanted to commend Dr. Orr on her good work in working with the SELA to date, although we have some perspectives that don't quite allow us to say we're happy to move forward with clear conscience. I am also a member of the SELA Policy Advisory Committee that Dr. Orr referred to, and one of the ongoing concerns that committee made was with the cut scores, and it's very nice to hear that this round is simply a first step and that those will be examined in the future. My colleague will talk a little bit more about implementation of SELA. My point today was to simply bring up a couple of points related to the content of the test and to make people aware of some of the concerns that teachers in Florida raised about the test based on their experience administering the test in their schools. Related to two general assessment concepts of validity and reliability, we asked teachers to give us their experiences and their perspectives on whether the SELA assessed students' language ability fairly and accurately, and whether the SELA was something that was a consistent measure. And so what I'm going to say now relates to those particular questions. Related to validity of the SELA, one of the concerns that some of the teachers expressed was the fact that because the SELA is attempting to do more in the way of assessing academic language for students who are learning English as a second language, it introduces content area content like mathematics and science and asks students to respond to situations, etc. One of the kinds of questions that teachers raised as a red flag area for a language bias or a potential threat to validity of the SELA was questions that asked in particular Spanish-speaking students, or asked questions that Spanish language speakers would have a greater knowledge of the vocabulary word in English. So, for example, pointing to two parallel lines and asking students to name the relationship of those lines, or perpendicular. If you speak Spanish, you might realize that those words, parallel and perpendicular, are cognates between English and Spanish, and therefore those words are very closely related. And given the large number of Spanish speakers in Florida, we are wondering and concerned a bit about some of the consequences of that kind of bias in the test. In terms of cultural bias, some of the items were not necessarily academic in nature, but rather experiential, social, and asked students to respond to questions such as, what is your opinion on driving, 16-year-old driving licenses, or adolescent dating? And one of the comments that teachers repeated in their responses to our questions were a concern that students who came from some parts of the world would feel comfortable responding to that kind of question, and others, because of where they came from, or their gender would not be comfortable, and so that therefore the test isn't necessarily measuring what it's supposed to be measuring, which is English language proficiency. The third area in which the teachers were concerned that the test might be problematic is the length of the test. I mean, one of the comments was that the test is shorter than other English language proficiency tests. I have to disagree with that comment. Some portions of the SELA are very long, and particularly for younger grades, students had difficulty completing entire sections of the SELA, and that was a problem because they had to stop. They had to come back in the afternoon and continue on. So it wasn't administered the way it was supposed to be administered. The format of the test requires a bubbling response mode, and students who are newcomers may not have experience with that kind of responding to an answer sheet who are coming from other cultures, and particularly younger children did not have experience with that. So there was a lot of confusion over that kind of response to the test. The high school teachers mentioned items such as inauthentic kinds of questions, such as a visitor is coming to your classroom and he has a particular kind of position. Ask this person what the biggest ethical challenge of this person's work might be. And the teacher said that's a completely unrealistic kind of question for high schoolers to respond to, and they simply did not know how to respond. It wasn't that they couldn't give an answer, they simply were floored by the kind of question that was. So those are examples of the kinds of linguistic, content, cultural format bias that the SELA may provide. We just don't have good psychometric data for the SELA on these kinds of issues. The second area is reliability. This is a point that was raised earlier with the concern about the writing exam. Perhaps the biggest concern about SELA was, as far as teachers and students were concerned, was the lack of consistency in the implementation. The administration was very quickly put into place, and the ways that districts and schools provided assessment for students varied quite a lot. So on one portion of the test, listening and speaking, students were herded, these are the teacher's words, they were herded into the cafeteria in large mass, and then the exam, the listening prompts were recorded on in an audio tape and broadcast with a cafeteria speaker, a bullhorn kind of task. And that was very different from those students who received the exam on a one-on-one basis with their teacher administering the exam. So inconsistency in administration and inconsistency in scoring. Teachers were concerned that because in very large districts like West Palm Beach, Dade, Miami-Dade, school staff were insufficient to administer the SELA. Therefore, people had to be hired off the street, sort of short term, and they were not very well prepared to administer the SELA. They were not consistently providing the same kinds of feedback for students. They weren't scoring the exam in the same manner consistently, and therefore the results would be potentially suspect in that kind of situation. Another area of concern.
2 more minutes.
Thank you. I'll take just one. Overexposure of some of the items. One of the potential problems with SELA over the long term with Florida is that there are only 2 forms of the test. And because students are with the SELA tested in grade level clusters, there are 4 forms of the test. So Form A, for example, tests K1, 2. Form D, A, B, C, D, D forms tests grades 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 4 grade levels tested. So if a student's coming through high school, they may take the SELA 4 times. Form A twice, Form B twice, etc. Sorry, 4 times. So because of the limited nature of the item bank, the very shallow item bank that the SELA currently has, and given that no other states are using it, it's unlikely that ETS will be developing a lot more forms of that test. We're concerned that there'll be the security of the test will be compromised, and therefore the validity of that test. We would like the state to be aware of these weaknesses, I guess, in the SELA, and to be aware that there may be significant need for training of professionals to administer the test so that it can be optimally administered, and then we feel that we need a lot more research on looking at what the implementation of the SELA means for students. I'll defer to my colleague who will talk about use.
Thank you for hearing us.